Hello, and welcome to the Red Pill Central channel. This is Johnny Red. This video will address a concern that race realists and those on the alt-right frequently have to deal with in their interactions with people they come into contact with on a regular basis. We are accused so often of being racist, white supremacist, bigoted, hateful, backward, ignorant, and so on, that it can cause us to question, sometimes, whether we really are bad people. In the following clips of Hillary Clinton during the 2016 presidential election campaign, you'll hear her describe Trump supporters using all these denigrating terms. You don't even have to be a Trump supporter. You can detest Trump. But if you agree with any of his stands on any issues, you will be lumped in with what she called the deplorables. Her anti-white rhetoric actually breathed new life into the alt-right. It practically created the movement. Before the 2016 campaign, the alt-right was nowhere. Hardly anybody had ever heard of it. Now, thanks to Hillary, it is a force to be reckoned with. Here are some excerpts from some of her campaign speeches with comments.
From the start, Donald Trump has built his campaign on prejudice and paranoia. He is taking hate groups mainstream and helping a radical fringe take over the Republican Party. His disregard for the values that make our country great is profoundly dangerous. In just this past week, under the guise of outreach to African Americans, Trump has stood up in front of largely white audiences and described black communities in such insulting and ignorant terms. Poverty, rejection, horrible education, no housing, no homes, no ownership, crime at levels nobody has seen. Right now, he said, you can walk down the street and get shot. Those are his words.
Yes, those are his words, and those words are accurate. Black cities are riddled with crime, poverty, violence, ignorance. The schools are places where very little learning takes place. Violence against teachers, violence among the students is rife. So yes, everything Trump said is generally true. Here are a couple of examples of some schools in Baltimore and Philadelphia, and the announcer admits that these problems are not just at these schools alone, that they are a widespread problem throughout the country.
In tonight's Education Alert, 8 Baltimore City schools have been labeled persistently dangerous. These schools were picked by the state based on the number of student suspensions. 11 News education reporter Tim Tootin joins us from the newsroom this evening. And Tim, these aren't suspensions for showing up late for class, are they?
Not at all, Stan. This is really an issue of student safety and school safety. Students at these schools were suspended for serious crimes like arson, weapons, and assault.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. It's a story that plays out in too many communities across America. Public schools where learning takes a back seat to simply making it through the day. Tonight, we take you to Philadelphia for an extraordinary tale of fear and hope in what is considered one of the nation's most dangerous schools. The city has given the Strawberry Mansion High School just 6 months to prove it should be kept open. And my colleague Diane Sawyer, along with ABC producer Claire Weinrob, were there to witness a struggle against the odds in our latest edition of Hidden America.
Security guards take their post to watch for razor blades in tinfoil, knives in backpacks,
Take your coat off. You're not listening.
Vaseline on faces used to prevent scratches in a fight.
What's up?
It is a school of more than 430 kids. A lot of them want to learn.
Okay.
A lot of them on a hair trigger.
This is a dangerous school. A lot of fights pop off for nothing. So we gotta be safe.
For the last 5 years, Mansion, as the students call it, has been considered one of the most dangerous schools in America.
This is someone who retweets white supremacists online, like the user who goes by the name White Genocide TM. Trump took this fringe bigot with a few dozen followers and spread his message to 11 million people.
She accuses Trump of being divisive, yet her words are more divisive than Trump's. She actually characterizes everyone who opposes her or doesn't think the way she does as evil. She calls them names. She calls us names: bigot, racist, white supremacist, and she implies that such people should be deplatformed and whose views should not be allowed in public discourse.
He certainly doesn't have any solutions to take on the reality of systemic racism and create more equity and opportunity in communities of color and for every American.
Systemic racism is the standard explanation for all disparities between the races in academic achievement, employment, poverty, crime, illegitimate births, and other social pathologies. To use this as the reason for all these disparities is actually to accuse the entire white race of hatred, bigotry, and injustice. It's inflammatory, it's demeaning, and it's untrue. There are innate differences between the races which are taboo to talk about. This is the main reason the alt-right exists, to bring these taboo subjects up for discussion.
It really does take a lot of nerve to ask people he's ignored and mistreated for decades, what do you have to lose? Because the answer is everything. Now, Trump's lack of knowledge or experience or solutions would be bad enough. But what he's doing here is more sinister. Trump is reinforcing harmful stereotypes and offering a dog whistle to his most hateful supporters.
Trump is reinforcing harmful stereotypes? Well, over in Sweden, since the migration crisis began in 2015, the number of rapes have skyrocketed. Most of the rapes are perpetrated by the migrants. The government and the media are trying to suppress this because, for the same reason, they say it reinforces harmful stereotypes. They seem to have the cart before the horse. The reporting of this behavior, of these rapes, is not what reinforces the harmful stereotypes. It's the people committing the acts that reinforces the harmful stereotypes. If a person just tells the truth about what's really happening, and that causes people to feel a certain way, that's reinforcing an accurate stereotype. If you lie about what people are doing, you're causing people to have inaccurate stereotypes, which is more harmful than having true stereotypes, even if they're negative.
According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks hate groups, Breitbart embraces ideas on the extremist fringe of the conservative right. This is not conservatism as we have known it. This is not republicanism as we have known it. These are racist ideas, race-baiting ideas, anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant, anti-women, all key tenets making up the emerging racist ideology known as the alt-right. Now, alt-right is short for alternative right. The Wall Street Journal describes it as a loose but organized movement, mostly online, that rejects mainstream conservatism, promotes nationalism, and views immigration and multiculturalism as threats to white identity. So the de facto merger between Breitbart and the Trump campaign represents a landmark achievement for this group, a fringe element that has effectively taken over the Republican Party. Now, of course, there's always been a paranoid fringe in our politics, a lot of it arising from racial resentment, but it's never had the nominee of a major party stoking it, encouraging it, and giving it a national megaphone until now. On David Duke's radio show the other day, the mood was jubilant. We appear to have taken over the Republican Party, one white supremacist said. Duke laughed. No, there's still more work to do, he replied. So no one should have any illusions about what's really going on here. The names may have changed. Racists now call themselves racialists. White supremacists now call themselves white nationalists. The paranoid fringe now calls itself alt-right. But the hate burns just as bright.
So this video will answer this question. Can I be a racist or a sexist or a white supremacist and still be a good person? In much public discourse today, we frequently see accusations of racism always levied by leftists, Marxists, and social justice advocates against anyone who questions or challenges the dogma of racial egalitarianism. The people who make these assertions often throw in other denigrating terms such as bigot, xenophobe, and white supremacist. These people's mindset can be perplexing. They seem to resemble fundamentalists of certain religions in their dogmatic, evidence-free, unquestioning adherence to their beliefs. If you point out, for instance, the numerous studies showing an average difference in IQ or temperament between the races, they will become incensed and impugn you and your sources as racist. Any source that claims to show anything other than superficial racial differences is invalid, they say, because it's racist. And how do they know it's racist? Because it purports to show significant racial differences. See the circular reasoning? These accusers are impervious to any evidence that threatens their egalitarian worldview. Everybody is equal. Any inequality is due to racism, white racism, of course, which they say is the only kind there is. So what can get you branded as a racist or a white supremacist? Well, first of all, any suggestion that there are any cognitive or temperamental differences between the races. Another opinion that will get you accused of being both a racist and a white supremacist is that of simply saying that you want to preserve the white race from extinction or genocide. First, they will call you paranoid and deny that there's any reason to worry about such things. And next, if they admit to that possibility, many will come back with something like, why would you want to preserve the white race anyway unless you thought it was superior? No matter that the safest, most prosperous, most well-organized, and technologically advanced societies in the world have been created by whites. Why do people of Africa want to go to Europe, but not the reverse? Africa has a much better climate and more natural resources. So why? Of course, they will rally behind preventing the extinction of any other ethnic group, or even the white rhino. But whites? Come on, that's racist. The facts are that by current estimates, whites are between 10 and 20% of the world's population, and that in every white majority country, the birth rate is below replacement level. Add to that the rapidly changing demographics of all currently white countries, all of which are scheduled to become minority white countries within the next century, and that the new immigrants are told that the whites of their host countries are evil racists, then you have a recipe for extinction. There are many on the left who celebrate this prospect. They actually believe that whites, and only whites, hate other races just because of their skin color or because they look different.
Globalists love to say that white genocide is just a conspiracy theory. But if that's the case, then why did a host on CNN say that it's the, quote, only solution?
It's a kind of utopia, just the fact that the whole world will mix up with each other, that in, 70, 80 years, there will be no white people anymore and only cappuccino-colored people.
Look, that's the only way. This is the only solution. It's my way of thinking.
Mix up,
it's our only hope, is our way out of this.
Yes.
It's going to take some time, but it's really the only way. This sort of Singaporean model where everybody's so mixed up that you really don't know who to hate because everybody's so hopelessly intertwined, but we're a long way from that.
Just a conspiracy theory, right?
Actually, such prejudice is extremely rare. Almost nobody hates anyone for their looks or the shade of their skin. Whites, or indeed people of any race, do, however, discriminate based on observed behaviors and the stereotypes these observations create. I'm going to have to go into the psychology of stereotyping in some detail here, because sociologists tell us that stereotyping is wrong, ignorant, inherently biased, or worse. They tell us that stereotypes are rigid, false generalizations about whole segments of humanity based on prejudice and bigotry. This is false. Studies have shown that stereotypes change and evolve as new information is acquired. A stereotype is simply a generalization based upon available information. The more information you have about a particular subject or group, the more accurate your stereotype will be. Of course, by definition, stereotypes can't be applied to individuals. For instance, we can't tell how intelligent a person is or whether he has criminal intent just by knowing his race. What stereotypes can do, however, is determine probabilities by race, sex, and socioeconomic status, among other criteria. For example, who would, on average, more likely be a threat? A group of white female teenagers or a group of black male teenagers? To anyone with a functioning brain, eyes, and ears, the answer is obvious. How do we know this? By observation. A hypothetical example. If I see and hear about a large number of people being bitten by pit bulls, I will form a stereotype that pit bulls bite. I am unlikely to go up to one and try to pet it. I'll probably go out of my way to avoid them. I may be wrong about an individual dog, but I know what the odds are, and that knowledge can save me from a potentially serious injury. The fact is, everyone categorizes people based upon such things as race, sex, clothes, and accent, when that is all they know about them. Once you get to know someone as an individual, probabilities recede into the background and become essentially meaningless. Sometimes a person will conform to a stereotype, and sometimes he will not. But until you know whether he will or not, the stereotype provides useful information about probabilities. So it's not evil, lazy, or bigoted to use stereotypes. Everybody does it. If you are aware of statistics on crime, poverty, illegitimate births, or academic achievement and point these facts out, you will be called racist, bigot, sexist, etc. What are commonly called racism and sexism are simply the use of stereotypes applied to race and gender. To recap, of course, even the dullest person knows that stereotypes don't apply to all members of a category. So if I say Muslims are responsible for more terrorist attacks than any other religious group or demographic, that is simply a statement of fact. There's a huge body of evidence to support it. However, to say that all Muslims are terrorists is a completely different thing. This is a generalization that doesn't allow for exceptions and therefore is false. So the answer to the question, can you be a good person even if you are a racist or a sexist? Well, by the definition of those who make the accusation, yes, you can still be a good person. I think I'll end this video with a little clip from the Murdoch series that explains what white nationalism is without all the hateful rhetoric that the left heaps on it. Your race is just your extended family, and it's natural to feel closer to them than to other races. It doesn't mean you hate anybody. So don't let anybody tell you that you're a hater just because you want to be around your own people. Just watch this.
You know, I wonder why black guys kick white guys' asses in sports.
Don't you think that natural selection might have something to do with it?
What exactly do you mean?
All I'm saying is, Africa and Europe are different environments, and perhaps those environments selected for different attributes.
It sounds like something Donald Trump would say. What are you, racist?
Let me ask you this. Do you have a good relationship with your father?
Yeah, he's great.
Well, do you think he loved you more than all the other kids on the playground?
Well, of course, he's my dad.
But did him loving you mean he hated the other kids?
No, of course not. It's just that I'm his blood.
Right. And see, I think that maybe racism people have to love themselves first above others. But loving your own people doesn't mean you hate everyone else. It's just like a father putting his own child first.
Okay, but race is just a social construct.
Well, when a DNA test can accurately determine a person's race, I say that's more than just a social construct.
Listen, you're making me very uncomfortable right now.
I'm sorry, just calm down. Can we talk about this?
Wait, are you a Nazi?
Scott, please, I don't like that word. I'm a National Socialist.
Do you deny the Holocaust?
Hold on.
And to think I was gonna try and fill you up tonight. Excuse me, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave.
Those are some nice Pepe paintings you got there, Arthur Donald.
This one's super rare.
But isn't Pepe supposed to be green?
Well, this color set didn't come with green.
Well, you know, if you mix yellow and blue together, you get green.
Really? Wow! Would you look at that?
Yeah. Blue and red makes purple, and red and white makes pink.
Oh, wow! I can add a little bit of this, and if I add some red and blue and...
Be careful. You don't want to mix them all together.
Well, why not?
Well, then you wouldn't have any colors but one. You got to keep the colors separate if you want to keep the colors. You know, a lot of people hate me because I think that each color has to have its own place on the palette.
Well, why would someone hate you for that?
What's your favorite color, Arthur Donald?
Red, white, and blue?
Well, don't you know that those can't be made from mixing other colors together? So if you mix them all, you can't get them back.
Do you believe in evolution or not, Paul Joseph?
Evolution? What does that have to do with it?
It has everything to do with it. These days, they keep pushing this concept that everybody's the same, that all races of men should live in the same home. But what if we're not all the same? What if our insistence on egalitarianism does more harm to people than good?
What do you mean?
Well, if people groups are different, I assume some people might be better than others at things.
Like what kinds of things?
I don't know. Sports, reading, math.
Maths? Are you saying that some groups may be more intelligent than others?
Maybe. I'd think if your group was naturally good at math, they'd do pretty well in our type of society. But what if they weren't? Wouldn't your people be forever stuck in the lower caste? Sure, there'd be some who'd do well. There are always outliers. But for the majority, it would be a life of poverty.
So you're saying what? They would do better living in a society among themselves?
Just like how a close-knit family is more cohesive, so is a close-knit people. That's why the bluebirds fly with the bluebirds, and the redbirds fly with the redbirds.
Well then, who's the greatest people?
There is no greatest people, Paul Joseph. It's not about being superior or inferior. We're all just different. And sure, I prefer my people, but doesn't everybody?